Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sorry I'm a Bitch, the podcast for anyone who's ever been called a bitch. Hosted by Kaylee Ellis and produced by me, Hannah Laree.
Welcome to Sorry I'm a Bitch. I'm your host, Kaylee.
Oh.
And my guest today is Chandra. Today's episode is called Mommy Issues, and we are going to make juiceless mimosas right now.
That's my favorite mimosa. Sláinte.
Cheers. A little background on why I chose Chandra for this episode. Chandra, when we first moved in, just good vibes as soon as I met her. But when I have a mommy question, I go to Chandra. She'll be like, let's go for a little walk and I'll get your daughter a popsicle while you talk shit about her. And she always has the best advice. So that's why I chose you.
Well, thanks. It's funny. I said to Phil this morning, I said, all the moms on the block, I hope Kaylee knows what she's getting into.
I do. I chose wisely. Okay, so let's get into it.
Okay.
What has been the most surprising part of being a mom?
Oh, gosh, that's multifaceted. One that I didn't really discover until much later in motherhood, which is that there's literally a split second where your existence changes forever. So you aren't a mom, and then they hand you a baby, and you are a mom. You could have someone would come to you and say, "I'll give you, the biggest diamond in the world, or all the money, or a yacht, or whatever for that baby," and you be like, "You can fuck the fuck off." There's this thing that happens inside of you that changes forever. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that I realized that I parent from a place of where I wasn't parented, and that can be really dangerous and amazing. But it's multifaceted. It can be dangerous and also amazing.
What is a parenting philosophy you have adopted that you didn't learn from your own parents?
First time I had a baby, I was 24. And then the second time I had a baby, I was 30. And now I'm 53. And I'm curious. I try to be curious about their experience.
Have you ever felt like you weren't doing enough as a mom?
All the time.
Even still?
Yeah, I mean, it's with regularity. I mean, 100% guaranteed you're going to fuck it up. Like, there's just no possibility you'll do it perfectly. My good friend Leslie, who is also a mom and an amazing mom, and she's also a therapist, but one of the things that she says is, but was it good enough? I think you just have to live by that. My intentions are always from love, or at least on the good days. I think the question sometimes I ask myself is, was it good enough? Because there's always room for improvement and growth and all the things. And some days I, royally screw it up. And you just say, can I have a do-over? Or I wish I would have done it this way. And sometimes I'll go years and say that, they'll come back to me and say, that didn't really serve me. And I'll be like, okay, I hear that. It's like when someone says you hurt my feelings, you don't get to say, no, I didn't. And your kids say to you, that didn't really work out for me very well. I feel like you say, oh, wow. Well, I wish I'd done that differently.
If you could go back and redo anything, would you?
Oh, God. Yeah, lots of things, probably. I mean, the old cliche, hindsight's 2020. Yeah, a lot of things. Some of that is just being young, and I wish I had known myself deeper before I became a parent, but I didn't. And so what can you do about that? Yeah. So yeah, there are lots of things I would do differently. Specifically, like pointing to one thing in particular, I wish I had not worried so much about early childhood education. I know that sounds crazy, but you can't even imagine the hours I labored over, is this the right education? Like, it was just so crazy. Specifically just to the kids in general, I wish I would have allowed them to experience more discomfort.
You know that the education thing is the first thing I came to you about I've just been racking my mind about it.
It's so hard. I think it's such a hard thing. So, like for Noah, for instance, if I had it to do over again with Noah, I probably would have never put him in a classroom. He's just a different kid. I would have homeschooled him. I didn't think I had the skill set to homeschool, but he would have done much better at homeschooling and probably would have graduated from high school by the time he was 13. It just didn't serve him well. It didn't serve him well. And with Georgie, I probably would have found more hippie outdoor, be in art all day long, because everyone's going to learn how to read. I mean, I say that in this privileged way. It's not lost on me that lots of people in the world don't know how to read. But in our house, she's going to learn how to read, right? The math might be a little tricky, but she'd learn how to do math from somebody, maybe not me, but somebody, to be able to be in a situation where you're thriving in education is so personal. It's so independently who you are. And I think I just work so hard at, is this the best school? Does it have the best reputation? Is it socially diverse? Is it economically diverse? Is it culturally diverse? Is it racially, like all those things? What would be the perfect scenario for my child versus like what meets their need, if that makes sense? Because I think they would have found their own discomfort in those spaces. And instead, in other ways, I created social situations for them that based on everything that was already around them.
Choosing a school based off of societal, like what society says is perfect instead of what was perfect for your individual child.
I planted them in a school situation that my life was already in. Does that make sense? So I didn't create a space for them or allow them to create their own space of figuring out who they were. It was like I planted them in a social situation that these are already kids they hang out with. This is already the school that everybody in the neighborhood goes to, or this is where the same people who go to ballet class go, or the same that kind of thing. In some ways, freaked out about, I don't want it to be too difficult for them, but also want them to get this education. But also I think it would have been good for them to have a little bit more discomfort in their existence.
That's actually, I feel like, goes to show how good of a parent you are. Is there a moment that stands out to you as particularly difficult?
There have been difficult moments. Probably the most difficult day I ever had, I'm going to cry telling you, when I sat the kids down to tell them that we were getting divorced. I thought, okay, I want to do this in a place that is comforting to them, is safe, and they'll be able to hold on to as much safety in it as possible. I brought them into my bed, and when I explained it to them, they didn't reach for me, they reached for each other. So it was lovely, because I thought, I've done my job, they're siblings, but also it was heartbreaking because I knew that I had really devastated them. For me, there's nothing that I can say to myself or someone else could say to me that would be like, oh, well, you did it the best way you knew how, or you're a good mom, or no, fuck that. I created damage for my children that day. I know I did. And I feel grateful that they were there for one another, but it was really clear to me that I could offer them nothing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most difficult parts of being a mom, at least for me, is you have to remove yourself so much. Before you have children, you're just able to go through things and experience hardships and get through it yourself. But when you're a mom, you go on the back burner. You like going through a divorce is one of the most difficult things you can go through. And then to have to remove yourself from your own divorce and put your kids first.
And let's be honest, like you're not putting your kids first in lots of ways when you get divorced. They didn't ask to be divorced. They didn't ask for the division. It's not their fault that you are in a relationship that doesn't serve you or the other person. So it is the trickiest thing, right? Because the long-term piece is you're putting them first, because nothing good comes from kids being in a house where a loving relationship isn't being modeled, right? Like that's not good. Like when my parents got divorced, I was like, adios, motherfucker. But that wasn't their situation. There were lots of moments where I felt extremely selfish and also I know my own self, and I knew that we had run our course. I still love their father. He's my family. He'll always be my family. I'm not in love with him.
I know. I sat next to your ex-mother-in-law at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But we didn't, and he has his person and she's amazing and all the things, right? But it took us a long time to get there, and they suffered along the way.
I knew I was going to cry during this. I just didn't know it would happen like the fourth question. What is the most difficult age to parent?
Oh, fucking adults. It's it's an oxymoron. Yeah, babies, cakewalk, toddlers, cakewalk. Everyone says, "Oh, the terrible twos." I just thought they were funny. I mean, they have 2-year-old coping skills. Like, what the hell else are they going to do? Like, it didn't bother me at all. If a kid can use motherfucker in a sentence well, I'm like, dude, you're nailing it. Not that I'm out here being like a proponent of kids who use bad words, but if you find enough rage in yourself that you're like, listen, motherfucker, and you're 2, you're nailing it. But adults, they're really trying to figure it out. And you see the pieces where you're like, oh, goddamn, this is going to last for 4 years. You make this choice, it's going to last for 4 years. Or if you say, I don't want you to date that person, that's exactly how they're going to date them. So why are you parenting adults? You create different boundaries, but you don't stop parenting. You don't go to sleep one night, wake up and be like, oh, they're 18. I'm all done now. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And all of my kids, my stepchildren and my children are all adults now. The youngest is 21. This is the part where I could learn to be better about letting them be in discomfort. Watching them adult, and honestly, I'm really lucky. They're all doing a bang up job. It's just hard because the choices they're making financially, emotionally. Noah eats the shittiest food in the universe. It makes me insane. And I'm like, buddy, one day you're going to have heart disease. Like, I want to say that to him, but you also don't want to be shaming. And he's a grown ass man. He can eat McDonald's if he wants to eat McDonald's, right? Like, that's just the reality. Yep. But my mommy mind does not turn off.
What's been your favorite age to parent?
Oh, gosh. Different for each of them. Noah, probably between 6 and 12.
Is that a boy thing or just a Noah thing?
It's probably an ego thing for me. If I'm being honest. So between 6 and 12, I was everything to Noah. Everything. Like, I was his best friend. I was his confidant. He really trusted all the things that I had to offer him. He was a co-sleeper. Jonathan used to say all the time, this kid's never leaving. I'm a massage therapist, right? So he would get out of the bathtub when he was little, and I would put lotion on his back, and he's like, he gets out of the bath every night, gets a massage. Yeah, he's 4 years old. He sleeps in our bed. He's never leaving. I know what everyone's going to say about me after they listen to this. They're going to be like,
yeah, they're going to wish that they had you as a mom.
No, they're going to be like, cut the fucking cord, But Noah literally was born dead. I know that sounds terrible, but he had his APGAR was 1. His heart was beating, but he was not breathing. It was a terrible, terrible labor and delivery. He almost died. I almost died. So my parenting of him was extreme. I was very attached to him every step of the way. I was very one-dimensional. It was, from a place of fear. It just was, So we were really, really close. Then Georgie came along when Noah was 6.5, and she came into this life with some shit that did not belong to me. I did not know that until much later in our relationship. But she just was not that interested in me. She would arch her back. She wouldn't let me snuggle her. She just came into this world not trusting me.
What about her dad?
Adored him. I had a pregnancy loss in between the two. Not to get too woo-woo, hippy-dippy shit, but I think it was probably Georgie. And I think she didn't trust me, that I didn't fight hard enough for that in her mind. Because that is Georgie girl. She got a sword of justice that is a mile long. Fast forward, and we had a moment one night. She's screaming her head off. She was, I think, about 8 months old. And I'm holding her and I'm trying to be patient. And I was just like, baby, what do you need from me? Like, I was just exhausted. And it just came into my brain, oh my God, she doesn't trust me. And I had this moment like, it's because of that pregnancy. And I just started sobbing. I'm not shitting you. It was like her body just went limp. Like, it's about fucking time you said sorry to me. hand to God. I don't care if you believe it or if you don't believe it. I don't need your acknowledgement that it's true. It was true for us.
Yeah.
And we shifted from that moment. Noah, when he was younger, because we just had this bond, and but then Georgie, high school through college, thick as thieves. I've always said to my kids, it's not my job to be your friend. It is my job to be your mom. And maybe one day that will shift for us. The reality of it is that she's one of my closest, dearest friends. Like, I fucking love that kid. She's incredible. She's incredible. Also, she makes me want to be the best version of myself because I'm a woman and she is a woman. I have to do better. Can't be out here like half-assing it, and that's her version, right?
I have to say, we're kind of going through this with Lydia. Lydia prefers Zach, but so much so to the point where she will say, I hate mom. We'll put her down to sleep and I'll go to give her a hug and she'll push me away and she'll say, I want dad. Like she wants nothing to do with me. It sucks, especially because I didn't grow up with a dad. So like my mom was my whole world. So when we found out Lydia was going to be a girl, I was like, she is going to have what I have with my mom. Like being little, like all I wanted was my mom, like cuddle with my mom. And then she wants nothing to do with me.
That will shift. And I'm not a psychologist, but I think Georgie and I had moments where, and still we have moments. She'll tell you the story about all of her friends always say, oh my God, your mom smells so good.
You do. Okay, real quick. Chandra smells, this is the best smelling person. When she leaves the house, my house will smell like this for 2 days. She gave Lydia this, Lydia calls it Chandra bunny. It's a little stuffed bunny and it smells like Chandra and we will literally sniff it. It smells so good. Chandra lore.
Yeah. So she would say, I hate when people say that. And I think it's largely about her independence and not wanting to be me or this version of me. And so she had lots of moments pushing me away because she needed to separate herself from who I am and have her own individuality. All that to say, I think that there's a really good chance that that's just what you're experiencing. She's just figuring out that part of her that is not like you. And that's really amazing. So every time she says, I hate mommy, what she really says is, I want to be Lydia. That doesn't mean it don't hurt any less, but still.
What is something you learned from your mom, good or bad, that influences how you raise your kids?
My mom had lots of struggles in life and she did lots of things wrong. And I think she would say that. And the one thing that my mother taught me and both of my brothers was this unending container of love. Like she just was so good at that. When we were little, she was really good at telling us we were good at things, that we were smart, that we were beautiful, how much we were loved. And she did that, through her own drug addiction, abusive relationships, all kinds of things. But that she was constant in that. There were lots of things she didn't do well, but she did that amazingly. And my brothers and I are so close. I learned that definitely from my mom. On the flip of that, I was not terribly gracious. I was angry at her for a long time for the things that she didn't do right. I don't feel like I was a great daughter as a result of that. I was all wrapped up in my therapy and my boundaries and the dysfunction of it all. All those therapeutic words that you take in and then you feel like you have to implement them in your life. But I wish I had been more gracious and accepting and understanding of she was just doing the best she could with the tools that she had. I learned grace because I didn't do it well. And then another thing is I don't need a man. And she always had that in her existence. I'm a serial relationshipper, not just in, intimate relationships, but like my friendships are 30 years long and 25 years long. I think my mother really needed, in her own lack of fathering, she really needed that in her existence and chose very poorly again and again and again. And it affected us greatly. I knew very early on that I wanted to have children, but I did not need to have a husband.
What is the most misunderstood thing about being a mom?
That you always have the right answer. The expectation is that you're going to be the person who manages it all the time. your kid's throwing up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're not like, oh God, I'm too exhausted, I can't manage that. Or, like you just rise to the occasion. You can manage it. Sometimes I'm without my own skill set, and I didn't feel comfortable enough saying until much later in their lives, I don't know the answer to that. And sometimes I would say to Georgie, you want me to give you an answer that is 16 years old. I'm not 16. I can give you a 46-year-old answer. I think that's the expectation from the world at large. You're looked at on a regular basis. You are under a microscope. If you don't do it well, if you overdo it, if you underdo it, you're a helicopter parent, you're not involved enough, cut the cord, mama's boy, you're letting your daughter be too risque. I mean, all the shit, right? Like it's a nonstop microscope of how you're not doing it well. No fucking kidding. Some days I'm doing it well and some days I'm not.
All right. Describe yourself as a mom in 3 words.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is loving. Everything I do for my children is from a place of love. Now, curious. I'm a lot more curious about their experience. And fucking fierce. Do not come for my children.
Do you want to know what your kid said?
I do. Uh-oh.
Georgie said humble, warrior, and supporter. And Cleary said resilient, loyal, and selfless. And Noah did not answer.
That's so fucking perfect. Autism be like.
I don't know if he just needed more follow-up or if he's still thinking about it.
We should call him.
We're going to FaceTime Noah so we can get his answer.
He's so funny. Part of it is he's probably going to be like, Mama, I didn't want to answer. I don't know. Let's see what he says. Oh, it's so funny. Okay.
It is not lost on me that the 2 daughters answered. Noah didn't. Can you see him? Will he answer though?
Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't that be typical?
Oh my gosh. Here, I'll let you have it back.
Okay, yeah.
Oh.
I'll leave him a video if he doesn't answer.
Noah does not want to be. Noah follows the podcast.
Noah might be in like witness protection and I don't even know it.
Oh my God. Also, Noah is saved in her phone as Goose.
Oh, yes. He is my goose.
Okay. We will end it with this. Do you have any advice for new moms that are expecting, moms that are coming into this experience? What is your advice to them?
Know yourself deeper. There's the goose. Know yourself deeper. The longest, most intimate relationship you will ever have is with yourself. And the best version of you is the best version you can give your children.
Let's see what Noah has to say.
I just woke up. I did respond. I sent it to G and Cleary this morning. I said, good, caring, and loving.
I love how the daughters' responses are like warriors and the sons are like loving, caring. And I think my advice for not moms, because I think we know what we're doing. I think every single piece of advice that someone gave me, I was like, yeah, duh. I just instinctually know that. But for men, there will get to a time, if you have daughters, there will get to a time where your daughter is mean to her mom. And it is your job to be like, hey, Like the other day, Lydia said, I don't like mom. And Zach said, you like peanut butter jelly sandwiches? And she was like, yeah. And he goes, we're the bread, but mommy's the peanut butter and the jelly. She's the best part. It is the father's responsibility to make sure that daughters are respecting their moms, because it just does not come with the territory. They don't pop out respecting us. Well, this was fantastic. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Chandra. She is amazing. And catch us next week. Do you have any final, your last rites?
I'm loving the podcast. It's amazing. And well done, you guys. Kudos. I love to see women out here being empowered by their womanhood in various forms. Good for you.
And embracing being bitches.
That's right. Bitches be like.
If you like what you're hearing so far, give us a follow. We are a brand new podcast and we do everything ourselves. so your support quite literally keeps us going. And don't forget to tune in next Tuesday, right here on Sorry I'm a Bitch.